when a coach speaks, I think, some of the athletes listen, some of the athletes absorb what he's saying, but they're looking at a coach and they may be saying, well, he's being paid for what he's saying. And they may look at him and say, well, look at his age. What does he know about running? But when you work with your leaders internally, with the athletes within the program, and they are taking the leadership role and help sell the young people, on these values, and then it becomes a tradition that's repeated year after year after year. But you have to have the internal leadership, and it's passed on from one generation to the other. But if you have some gaps, you can lose what's really most important, and that is the inner strengths that come from the right culture.
North Central would start the 2010s with a runner-up finish at the National Cross Country Meet, but be back the following year in 2011, winning the national championship in a race that could have gone many different ways, with two of their athletes, Dan Curley and Matt Brinkmeyer, falling in the initial part of the race.
And I always say there's 4 parts of the race. There's the start, and in cross country, the start is tricky. You can't get out too fast, or you'll pay for it, and you can't get out too slow. And we've made those mistakes different times in our career. But you've got to run by feel, not by time. I think it's a mistake to say, hey, we have to hit the mile at this time or that time. I think you got to hit the mile or first part of the race, part 1, by feel, get your best position that you can. And that depends on the individual at the right pace for us to get us in the best possible position on that course. And then, position's important, part 1. And then to find our rhythm on that course, find that upper level aerobic, pace, which is not anaerobic, but upper level aerobic, in which you're maintaining the momentum that you built from part 1. And then in part 3, that's where we say that's where most races are run, because most teams in any part 3 of any race, whether it's track, mile, 5,000 meters, 10,000 meters, whatever, that's where they tend to slow down. If somebody gets out too fast and they start unconsciously slowing down. And in part 3, we tell our athletes that's where we want to maintain the rhythm, the pace that we generated in part 2. And you got to turn your brain on in part 3, because the natural tendency is, well, I'm halfway done subconsciously, so I'm going to slow down. And we just maintain the pace. And during that time, passing all kinds of athletes that are starting to come back when we're coming up. So we had great momentum in part 3. And then I always say, if you run the races properly, that you're going to always have a finish. Johnny Crane, he was fantastic at this. A quick story just popped into my head here. We went out to California, and he ran one time, and we sat on the bus after the trip, and he didn't run very well. He was very disappointed. He said that will never happen again. So we started training, really making sure that our aerobic base was much, much stronger, and we maintained it throughout the year in the proper way to be able to get to the national championship with aerobic foundation of aerobic strength. What he did in one of our last chance meets out here, and he had already qualified for the national championship, was the 5,000 meters. And he wanted to experience that part 3 and experience it as tough as he could. And he did this in a meet, big meet. People came from all over the country to run here at this meet. And he said, Al, in the middle mile of that 5,000 meters, I'm going to just take off and run as hard as I can for the next mile. I mean, that's not what you do in a race. So he got his start, and then in the middle of the race, he starts taking off. Obviously astonished anybody else in the race, what the heck's he's doing? And number 1, people thought, well, does he feel that good? Let him go. Number 2, if he's that stupid, let him go. Okay, they let him go. And so he's just taking off. But he ran himself up into the wall, and he was starting to really, really fade in part 4 while everybody else was coming on, because they ran a more balanced race. But he ended up still winning the race. But it's not the right way to run the race. But I'll guarantee you, when we got the national championship, he was not afraid of part 3. He was mentally tough and know, I have experienced something tougher than I will ever feel in a national championship. So he could run a balanced race You get to part 3. I want to maintain what I'm doing part 2. And I got the mental toughness to do it because I've conquered that already.
The 2012 NCAA Championship in Terre Haute, Indiana, would produce one of the greatest team finishes at a cross-country meet. With 1 kilometer to go, North Central sat in 5th. Al had told his team to be patient during the race, and it paid off in a huge way, with the entire team closing hard while other teams and runners were fading. North Central won the national championship, which moved their total to 15.
Law of specificity. To get a specific response, you must practice in a very specific way. And we learned to practice the details of whatever our race is going to be and implement those details in practice to be able to get to the meet situation and know that we had turned over all the rocks along the way. We knew where we're going to, stay the night before. We actually almost knew what rooms we were going to be in. We knew where we were going to eat the night before. We knew what we were going to eat the night before. We knew how long it was going to take to get to the course. We dress rehearsed everything so that when we got to the national championship, I'd say to myself, unless somebody got sick, hey, there's nothing else we can do. These guys are prepared, and they had the knowing. But it's an evolutionary process to get to that point, and that's the deepest level of confidence you can have. You know. Doesn't mean you're going to win, but you know you are going to run well, and you're prepared. You're the best prepared athletes in the United States because we've done everything we can think of to prepare you for this. Let the outcome take care of itself. Don't worry about the outcome. Just run the race. Focus on the process.
The 2014 National Championship was once again a tremendous challenge for North Central, with 3 of their runners going down in the first kilometer due to slick and muddy conditions. Those athletes could have felt sorry for themselves and given up, but instead they led a charge, coming back on St. Olaf, who had a commanding lead the entire race, to win by 13.
They fell down, they got back up, and they finished. They were very, very confident. I can remember that particular team. There was a pool table up in this building where the guys would go in to use the restroom and stuff like that. I went in there one time and our guys were playing pool. They were not nervous. They were confident. And the difference between being confident and cocky. They weren't cocky. Cocky is false confidence, where you're saying things that you don't really believe on the inside. These guys were confident on inside out. They knew they were going to run well, and no matter what happened in the race, they were able to adapt with competitive response, respond in the right way, and continue to go on that particular day win. The team that got 5th, that was a very, very young team that year, very inexperienced team that year. We were still evolving a great deal that year. We had a lot of uncertainty in our team. Who are our starting 5? Who are our starting 7? Who are in our top 10? Revolving door, because we're just learning about our freshmen at that time. And that particular year, and I thought they did a spectacular job with that meet. They were very, very, very disappointed because we got into pack and they got knocked down. I think 5 of our athletes went down, got knocked down, and they felt very badly about getting 5th. I felt very proud of them. I thought they're young, they're inexperienced. We've kind of struggled through an entire year trying to find out who we are and what we are. And then they have this happen to them in a race and they still get 5th. I thought they did spectacular. They weren't happy, and I think they kind of, at that point, used that experience to kind of jumpstart their process towards getting ready for the future. And they just kept evolving. They got experience there, and that it can continue to grow. Weather is a part of something that's uncontrolled by you. And so when we'd work out, there'd be times we'd go out, other than with lightning, go out with lightning. When it was raining, we're out running. If it's snowing, I loved it. It's snowing. Thank God it's snowing. We want snow to occur because we want to be running in snow. But because of the national championship, it may be snowing. So we prepared as much as we could with anything that we could anticipate that might happen at the national championship. So that again, when we got there, we'd say, hey, all the work's done. Now we just go out and run the race.
Tom Sawyer Park in Louisville, Kentucky has hosted many big meets in all NCAA divisions, but never had the conditions been like they were in 2016 for the Division III National Championship. The race temperature was in the 30s, with wind gusts over 40 miles per hour. Everyone was under the same conditions, but North Central was more focused and prepared and won by just over 140, scoring 60, and having their entire top 5 as All-Americans.
That team had all the ingredients of the success values and characteristics that were going to be very important for their success. So they had experience, they had confidence, they had the knowing.
2017 would have a similar result as the previous year, with North Central winning by a large margin and giving them back-to-back national championships. The team was led by 3 athletes, Jared Borowski, Drew Patel, and Al Baldonado, who finished in the top 10.
Drew Patel, first time I ever saw him run was down at the state meet, and he wasn't in, I don't think, the fastest section of the, 2 mile. I watched him down there. He was a good runner. He didn't have tremendous credentials, but you could tell that he really had the spirit and the heart and the potential to be a very, very fine runner, and he just kept growing and growing and growing. And one of the things that really helped him as a runner was increasing his aerobic capacity. But as he got aerobically stronger and stronger and stronger and realized that that was key to his success, he got better and better and better.
Drew Patel would win the individual title in 2018, and Al Baldonado would finish runner-up to help North Central win the team title and cement North Central and Al in the record books with 19 cross-country titles. This was the team that finished 5th in 2015, and those seniors finished their careers with a three-peat. In 2019, North Central would produce a runner-up finish in cross-country, and it would be the last year of Al being the head coach of the team. Frank Grammaroso, who had been on the coaching staff since 1983 and who took over as the head men's track coach in 2010, became the head coach of the cross-country program in 2020. Frank and Al weren't just great coaches, but friends who built North Central up for over 35 years. The 2010s had tremendous success on the track, winning 5 indoor track national titles and 2 outdoor track national titles. In total, Al and North Central won 19 cross-country national titles, 6 indoor national track titles, and 6 outdoor track titles. From 1973 to 2019 in cross-country, North Central only finished outside the top 2 as a team 11 times. Although extremely successful, he stayed true to his beliefs of the student athlete and developing people from the inside out. One of the biggest compliments a coach can receive is having a former athlete go into coaching themselves. From high school to all divisions of college, North Central alums are everywhere, continuing to guide and lead runners. When concluding the interview for the documentary, Al had these words to share.
I mean, I'm very, very, thankful for my faith, my family, the opportunity that North Central College has given me while here, the ability to teach, the ability to coach, an opportunity to spread what I think is most important part of track and cross country and my teaching, and that is to help inspire young people to absorb the internal characteristics and values on a spiritual base that's going to help them to have stability during life and during the tough parts of life. Life is not linear. Life is a cross-country meet. Life has hills, life has valleys, life has rain, life has snow, life has wind, life has cold, life has all kinds of difficulties and challenges along the way. But what you need to do is have this internal strengths that help you to navigate, persevere, to run the race of your life. You start out, everything seems pretty easy. Then you find your rhythm in life, and then life can get tough in the third part of the race, third part of life, and you got to be able to tap into the inner strengths that you've been given and learned and then to be able to finish your race and finish your life with the very, very best finish that you have. And so I just appreciate the opportunity that God has given me, what I believe to be a calling and my purpose for being on earth, to try to do my very, very best to impart these kind of virtues and values to others. I think we're put on earth to serve other people. That gives me tremendous joy. So I'm thankful that I have found this as my calling and a career, and glad to be here. I'm glad to have you here, and you're spreading the word right now with what we said here to others. And that's what we're put on earth to do, I think, to help each other out along the way. We all need help. We need to have the support of each other. That's being a team at its very, very, very best.